Welcome back to the BraveCo Podcast, men. Hey, before we get started, I want to ask you one quick question. Do you have a really clear plan to build a strong, capable, powerful leader that God's called you to be? If you don't, we have the course for you. It's our BraveCo Foundations of Masculinity and our Sexuality and Relationship course. These are free courses that we've created that you can literally go and sign up today. The best part of these is you get access to our community, right? So you can go, and if you want to run with other men who are crushing it in life, there's tons of guys there that you can jump into a course with, or we even have conferences and events that we do all year long that you can check out. But listen, I want you to go back and think about this. If you don't have a clear plan, if you don't have other guys that you're running with, if you don't have a clear pathway to how do I grow myself as a man? How do I step into my calling? What is my code, my ethos? What does it mean? How do I set healthy boundaries? How do I show up for my wife? How do I do emotion-based communication that creates deep connection in my family, in my marriage? Guys, we lay it out so simply for you. And honestly, I've seen so many men go through this and get complete healing on the other side. So we want to give that to you for free. You can go to braveco.org and sign up today. We live in a time where masculinity is shamed and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Valentin. Welcome back to the BraveCo Podcast, men. This week, I have one of my greatest friends and a guy that I look up to a lot. We've ran together, Tom, how long?
Years. I've been here 14 years. I've known you for that
14
long.
years then.
So,
yeah. And the way that Tom pursues life, his passion to see people radically transformed and changed, how I watched him raise his kids and just championed his wife. Tom, you're such a great man.
Thanks, man.
I just am so thankful to have you on here.
Yeah.
I worked with Leslie in the school of ministry. So we led the school of ministry together with Mark Brooks for, I don't know, maybe 10 years.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, long time. I was in that position for 10 years, but it's just so much fun to have all this overlap. And now we're both on the senior leadership team at Bethel Church. And so we see each other every week.
All the time.
But to have you come in, and today we're going to talk about how to build conviction in a world that lacks conviction.
Yes.
And
conviction in a world of compromise.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's even a better title.
Yeah.
I messed it up.
I'm here to help. That's okay. You're doing great. I'm just kidding.
No, it's awesome. And so, Tom, tell me a little bit about how you got saved. What was life like for you, where you grew up?
My testimony is a bit unique. I was born and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah. And when I, of course, say that, everybody thinks, Mormon. I was never a Mormon. My parents got saved when I was just a little kid. And so I grew up in a somewhat of a Christian home, and my parents did their best. I'm proud of them for standing the way they did in a place where less than 1% of the population was born again.
Wow.
And so...
Is it still that way today?
It's probably around 2%.
No way.
Yeah. No, it's like
oh my goodness.
I didn't know it, but I pretty much grew up on the mission field without knowing it. I knew of 4 people from kindergarten through my senior year that claimed to be born again besides me.
Really?
Yeah. And I wasn't strong for God when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I remember looking back in my mind, and I identified 4 people over my whole teenage years and child years.
That's shocking.
That was Utah. And so I grew up in that, not knowing any different. So, but I got saved when I was a little kid. I had a genuine love for Jesus, man. I mean, I jammed with Carmen, in my room. I loved the Champion, I mean, I was just all about it. I loved God, and then in 7th grade, I started hanging out with the wrong friends. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I went sideways and just lived in the world, long story short. And then...
Was it like lived in the world, like drugs, sleeping around?
Yeah. I remember when I was around 10 or 11 years old, I found pornography in a field. And I picked it up. I'd never seen it before, and it gripped me.
Yeah.
I took it home, went in my bedroom, hid it, and nobody knew about it. And that was the vice that held me for a lot of those teenage years. And the thing that sucks about porn is a lot of things, but it's never enough.
Yeah.
You always want more. True. You have to keep feeding the dragon. And so it was just like, it led me to a life of sexual immorality, drinking, and then around my junior year, smoking a lot of pot, and just partying in the world. And all those choices over time, you can't, Proverbs says you can't scoop fiery coals into your lap and not be burned.
Yeah.
So the consequences of that just caught up to me. I used to lie so much when I was a kid. I didn't even know what truth was.
Wow.
It was just like, I didn't know truth. I had a love for God. It's like the fingerprints of the Lord was still in my life, but the compromise I was living in, I mean, just the soul ties I had all over in the world and stuff, it was just bad. And so I remember I was about 17 years old. Long story short, God sent a man. He witnessed to me there at my job.
His name?
Have no idea.
Wow.
It was only about a 7-minute long conversation.
No way.
Yeah, and he just burned, like he was burning for God. He walked away, and I remember saying to myself, I knew it was real. And it marked me. I didn't fall on my knees and say, what must I do to be saved? It marked me.
Wow.
So I remember praying, like, God, if you really want to know you, I didn't want religion. I'd been around religion my whole life here in Utah. I wanted something real. I was so unfulfilled and lonely, and in slavery to all the crap I'd been giving myself to. That when I remember I broke off this relationship with this girl when I was 18 years old. And I'd go to church one weekend looking for God, and then the next weekend I'd get hammered drunk. And the next weekend I go to church, and the next weekend I'm in the world. It's just like this messy life. And one Sunday night, somebody preached. I'm there at church, and I'm in the back, and they said, if you want more of God, come down here. So I looked at my dad, and I said, I'm going to go down there. And he was like, okay.
How old were you at this time?
18.
18. I
walked up front, I knelt down, or I sat down, and I just said, God, I'm here.
Yeah.
That was it.
Totally. That's amazing.
It was just this simple, honest prayer, but like the presence of God came over me. I felt like liquid love, and I felt like eternity was looking at me, yet I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel condemned. And he said 3 words to me, I'm cleansing you. Wow. And I began to cry. It was a genuine encounter with God. We didn't have the words encounter back then.
For sure.
I just began to weep. I had snot hanging from my face to the floor. It was an absolute mess. And there's other stuff that happened, other encounters and stuff in there too. An evangelist came to a church and I got zapped, But like this was the moment when things changed for me. I got up a different person. I felt light. And then I just began to just devour the word. And everything changed there in that moment. And so that season.
I think that's why we believe so much in the encounter.
Yeah.
We have this phrase at Bethel, like, we owe the world an encounter.
Yeah, 100%.
Because like you talk about a lot, you can preach the gospel, you can talk about God, but if you give somebody an encounter, I mean, it's like a picture. Like I can try to describe what something's like, but if I show you a picture, but even better if I give you an experience.
Yeah.
That experience. I remember being 16 years old and being, we'd come down for these revival nights at Bethel, like Friday nights. They were just blowing up. And I remember I could still remember where I was standing at the front, and God just touched me at 16. And he was like, just the I love you, like that, the love of God.
Yeah, whoa.
Just wrecked me. And feeling the power and the love of God. And it was this encounter that marked my life. Yeah. I walked away from that going like, I didn't question again.
Wow.
But you have that anchor. Like those encounters are those anchors.
Yeah.
That really fasten you to the love of God, the purpose of God, whatever, you know, his power.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk, get into our subject a little bit of building conviction. How'd you say it?
Conviction in a world of compromise. Yeah.
In a world of compromise.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what we're talking about is coming to a place where you recognize, I don't want to live like this.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people in the world, Christian and non-Christian, alike, that are at that spot where
totally.
I mean, I remember being 14 years old with good friends of mine, knowing that we were all watching the same Showtime late night show. And, you know, it was pornography, soft porn, basically.
Yeah.
And just feeling like that, the rush of doing it and the sickness afterwards.
Like you want to take a million showers, but it won't do anything for you.
Showing up to church.
Yeah, totally. Shame.
The shame, the guilt. And one of the things about conviction is just the word conviction in and of itself can be good or bad.
Right.
You are convicted of a crime.
Right.
Or you live with conviction towards something. And I think a lot of the challenge that people have in building conviction is they are mostly convicted of what they're not. Right? So when I think about like building healthy conviction in a world that lacks it, is most people run around with so much pain around who they aren't, where they don't measure up, what places they suck at. And today, if we're just throwing the ball back and forth, like I think it's a really valid point. Say, I think a lot of people lack conviction because they still haven't figured out who they are.
Yeah.
And they still, even a Christian, still hasn't figured out, like, hasn't had that encounter.
Yeah.
That love of God encounter, which I know plenty of people that have lots of encounters and still run around.
Still struggle. Yeah.
Still struggle. But it does make a difference. And I think why I want to just at least bring it up and talk about it a bit for a second is it does make a difference. If you've never had that encounter, that love encounter with God, where, I mean, I look at Haley Braun, a great friend of ours.
Yes, she's amazing.
Co-worker. She's a leader at Bethel. She's on our senior leadership team. She had a really powerful encounter with God, I think in 2021. Something
like that,
Yep. And it changed the direction
of her whole life.
Yeah. An encounter in 2021. We all know about Bill's encounter that he had with God, laying in bed. The electricity of God shows up and it changes everything. It creates a conviction.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually what it does.
Yeah.
Like when you talk to Haley now, she'll start crying when she talks about God because it like instilled in her this conviction.
Yeah.
And I mean, I want to get down to the brass tacks of like, how do people create conviction and how do we, all that stuff. But I do at the beginning want to say like, man, if you've never had an encounter with God and you are struggling with like, is God even real?
Yep.
Does he love me? I think that's a massive part of living as a laid down lover for Christ, like actually as a man, like showing up and loving God fully, giving him my full heart. Like that's a hard thing to do if it's just simply the text in the book that you're following.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say too, every person watching right now or listening to this podcast, maybe you're sitting here going, I've never had one of those encounters before.
Yeah. Talk us through it a bit.
And you know, I love talking to people like about where that are stuck there, because what you believe about an encounter is oftentimes more important than the encounter itself.
Oh, that's great.
Because there's not a person alive that God has not talked to in some way. 2 Peter 3:9 says, God is not willing that any would perish, but that all would come to repentance. The Spirit of God is covering the earth like the waters cover the sea. And he is drawing people to his faith in his son, Jesus. And you can look at the word conviction and feel condemned, or feel just, fired up based upon your right standing you have right now with God or not.
Yeah.
And if somebody is not right with the Lord, you're not in good standing with God. If you're battling pornography, gosh, no condemnation, man. We've all been there. Like, you're battling porn, you feel like, and if you're married, boy, the shame you feel on that one,
So much.
and then you look at your kids and you're just like, oh, I'm not being the man I should be. That feeling you have right there, if you lean into the Lord, will pull you into being a great man, because you were never born to be a guy that's living in compromise. That's why we love Gladiator. That's why we love William Wallace.
No compromise.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, my life, self-preservation is the last thing those guys are thinking about.
Yeah.
And it's Hollywood, whatever, but like, it's like the principles are there. And so if you are like, man, I've not had that encounter, I would say God is talking to you. And encounters come from recognizing he's talking to you. And if you feel like I've not had that encounter yet, I would say that the Lord right now is speaking to your heart. And if you'll simply respond and say, like, I just prayed a simple prayer. I wasn't even trying to have an encounter.
Yeah.
God, I'm here. And it's oftentimes we're waiting to be zapped by God so he can take away our problems. And most of the time you're just going to walk away disappointed with that mindset. But if you'll come to him just as you are, realizing you're not the ones who started seeking God first.
Yeah, he started seeking you.
God was seeking you long before you ever thought of him. It's his grace that's grabbing you. There is no sin that's deeper than the grace of God. There is no stain stronger than the blood of Jesus. There is no wickedness that you're walking in right now that will turn away his love. It doesn't matter what you've done or where you've been. God loves you. And that is the basis of becoming a man of conviction, because I was not a man of conviction in my younger years. I was horrible, and it's like, how do you become a man of conviction? It's when you allow God to change you in your nature, because conviction comes from what you believe.
Yeah.
Belief shapes conviction. For me, growing up in Utah, I used to have people challenging me about the Bible that I was reading because it wasn't the right translation.
Got it.
And so I had to dig into, why do I trust this? People were trying to take away my faith. It was the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Because it caused me to dig in and stand and say, why do I believe the Bible is the Word of God? Why do I believe it's true? And the more I dug into it, this is for me where my conviction comes from. Like, if people are like, well, they take the Bible and they kind of put it on an even playing field with all these other books and self-help stuff. But the truth is, there is nothing on the planet that compares to the Word of God. Like, the Bible that you have today, just the New Testament alone, if you take that alone, there's certain tests that scholars use to prove the legitimacy of archaeological documents, and one of them is, how many do we have, and what's the how many years between its original writing and the oldest copy we have. Plato has 7 copies in existence, and the earliest we have from the original writing of Plato to the oldest copy is 1,000 years. But all of our universities love Plato, and they hail Plato and all that, and so when you look at the New Testament alone, just the New Testament, there's over 20,000 documents that our New Testament gets translated from. 20,000 that are available for scholars to translate our Bibles from. And so that's and the from the original writing to the oldest copy is around 50 years.
Wow.
So we have more documents, more evidence and proof for you to build beliefs that are strong in his grace and in his righteousness than you do in Plato, than you do in all these other self-help things we put our faith in. And when I begin to build that kind of foundation in my life, that there's no other book on the planet that has more evidence to build a life of belief and conviction than the Bible. And so because the enemy, he wants to get us to compromise our thoughts and not trust his word. But when you begin to trust his word, it just begins to eradicate other stuff. And that's how you develop a heart of conviction is by meditating on the word of God.
You know what really helped me when I was young is my parents believed so much in giving us real life experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was just a massive benefit, going on mission trips to Mexico, even home group inside of our house was a place where demons were getting cast out.
Yeah.
Radical salvations were happening. I just grew up seeing the supernatural being undeniable.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, there were seasons in my life where I hadn't had God personally touch me with an encounter, but I had seen him touch other people with an encounter.
Yeah.
And therefore I could never question whether or not God was real or whether or not the enemy was real. And that was a massive benefit. And so I think a lot of times when we're talking about what are your convictions built from, we all want God to come touch us on our terms.
Right.
And to come meet me in my bougie place and do it in a way that feels really comfortable to me.
Yeah.
And I just find that so much of the Christian walk is best lived in sacrifice and in seeking and pursuing. And so I really do think that getting yourself into a place where if God doesn't show up, something's going to happen bad.
Yeah.
I remember going to Africa with my sister and my dad. It was the first time he went to Africa.
Okay.
He said, I just got invited to Africa by Heidi Baker. I want you to come with me. And my sister and I were like, oh gosh. He's like, please come, I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
And so we went down there, and sure enough, it was so chaotic. We flew into the most dangerous city in the world at that time.
Wow.
And it was just, the house we stayed in had a 24-hour guard, and the car that was on the side of the road that night was smoking and on fire the next day. Like, it was wild.
Wow.
And we found ourselves 2 days later, my sister and I, in the middle of the bush to a African tribe that had never heard the gospel or seen a white person before.
Wow.
My sister and I are surrounded by this tribe. There's probably 300 people, and they're showing the Jesus film in their language, which we don't understand.
Yeah.
And these it was like National Geographic.
Yeah.
Their faces were painted white.
They had bones through their nose.
They had bones through their nose.
Wow.
And they started to mob, right? It became this mob. And my sister and I are getting mobbed, and people are touching our skin and touching her and trying to touch her boobs. And I'm trying to get these guys to stop touching my sister's butt and her boobs. And
oh my gosh.
But then I'm afraid they're going to kill me.
Oh my God.
Right? Because I don't know the boundaries, and I'm not coming from their world. But then through translators, we're also in this chaos praying for people. Heidi brings somebody up from their village. She's up top. They drove this flatbed truck in there, and they said, if you have a sick person, bring them here. Bring me someone that's blind or someone deaf. Translate.
Oh, that's awesome.
They bring him this blind child.
Yeah.
And God instantly opens up their eyes.
Oh, man.
And these people go nuts.
Wow.
It was wild.
Yeah.
We had to get rushed out of there.
No way.
Yes. It was both people getting saved and chaos at the same time. I feel someone grab me, and Heidi's like, we have to leave now. It's not going to be good. As we're leaving, we jump in the back of this truck. As we're leaving out of there, they're grabbing our camera, they're stealing stuff out of the truck as we this wild adventure where, again, you can't deny the power of God.
Yep.
I watched a person who was blind
get their eyes opened. Yep.
And I've had that experience multiple times in different ways, whether it's to Peak Mexico with Kevin Dedman or just different experiences watching God show up. Okay. What it does is it makes me answer the question, this vital question, is God real or is he not? If he's real, am I going to serve him? Am I going to serve him? Yes, I am. Okay, then what type of man am I going to be?
Yes, that's so good.
And answering this question, I watched an interview with John Mayer the other day,
Okay.
who was an incredible musician.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, right? He wrote, "Your body is wonderland," right? Like this is sorry, it's the only one I can.
I don't even know. I'm so
Yeah,
out of
Slow
touch.
Dancing in a Burning Room. All kinds of really, like he's one of the best guitar players in the world. He's not just a good musician.
Yeah.
And he asked himself this question when he first started: how much of your potential do you want to have access to? Do you want to unlock? And as soon as you figured out it was at 60%, did he want to utilize 60% of his potential, 50%, 40%? Like knowing that at the end of his life, he'll say, this is what I sacrificed for. Well, in the interview, he said, I decided 100% or nothing. And so then he completely changed his entire life to practice his craft, to unlock 100% of his potential.
That's amazing.
And when I think about it, we have these prototypes in the Bible. We have the Davids, we have Jesus, of course, is our ultimate model.
Sure.
Right. But then we also have these men around us. I had my dad, I had Bill, I had Danny, these really powerful men. That's why I think it's very important to have models that you can look to and go, that man has unlocked something that is in seed form in me, but he's eating the fruit.
Yeah.
And I want that in my life.
Yes.
And that type of conviction where every man gets to ask himself, yes, I know God's real. I've seen with my own eyes, I've experienced it. Okay, what type of man do I want to be? When I'm sitting at my deathbed, when I'm thinking about my future wife, when I'm thinking about what my kids are going to say about me, when I'm thinking about what type of man do I want to be? That's now becomes my
true north. Yeah.
I have to sacrifice everything in my life to be able to stand before Jesus and hear him say, well done,
good and faithful servant.
Yep. And to me, that's when we're talking about the origin of conviction, it was supposed to be birthed into us from our parents, right? You grow up in a home where they give you this really great identity.
Tom, the example that your dad and mom and dad are setting.
They build connection in the relationship. You already have a bond because of the connection. So I don't want to violate relationship there.
Right.
That connection gets transferred to Jesus, to God. And then I don't want to violate this.
I want to protect it. Yeah.
But then maybe you could take us through, like, because I think where people get off track is they go, I know God's real. I want to follow his word, but it's rules. It's because I think a lot of people grew up in that fear-based culture, and it's very hard to live a life of a laid down life when you're living in a prison of legalism.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like, I've had radical encounters with God before.
Yeah.
And then still found myself in a religious prison.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just to be honest, I mean, like, I've said before, I got set free from the world. I came out of the world, and it was tough coming out of the world. But it's been much tougher to come out of a religious spirit.
Yeah, it's true.
Than it was the world. Because it's hard to recognize sometimes.
The world is so black and white.
Yeah.
The religious spirit is not.
It's not black and white.
No.
Yeah. And some people will misinterpret it and be like, I'm not going to be religious, and then put whatever in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
And it's just like, compromising on sexuality and purity, that's not being religious.
Yeah.
That's just going to take you.
It's just being dumb.
That's just being stupid. That's going to take you into more bondage. But, Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. On this hangs all the law and the prophets. Everything you read about in the Old Testament. You do these two things, you're good.
That's great.
And so it's just like, it's not about what we're trying to not do. It's about doing that one thing well. And so loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and it only happens, I'm just going to say it only happens by grace through faith. Like,
what does that mean?
Yeah, it's great. Like, grace is undeserved favor. Grace is like where, if you've been living for God for a while and you haven't been living in sin, whatever, you begin to feel like you're earning it.
Yeah.
You begin to feel like, man, look at me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a wrong thought, or you do something stupid, and then you have a really hard time forgiving yourself. That's when you know you're being influenced by a religious spirit.
Got it.
And so grace is allowing God to still be your source that pulls you out of the red, but then also takes you into the black.
Yeah.
And so grace is Romans 5:17 says that we reign in life. People who have received the abundance of grace and the gift of righteousness reign in life. So in other words, we stop trying to earn our relationship with God, stop trying to earn holiness. Holiness is the fruit of righteousness, which is righteousness means right standing with God. And so these are big terms. They're hard sometimes to grab a hold of, like what does it actually mean?
Yeah.
But, I think one of the best ways to understand it is by looking at our own families.
Yeah.
And looking at like our kids.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
How would I treat my son when he screws up, or my daughter,
Yeah.
if she makes mistakes, am I going to treat her the way I'm treating myself right now? No, then that's a religious spirit that's trying to influence this. And so the way I'll walk that out, if I can't deal with it in my own soul, then I have guys in my life that I get vulnerable with and open with. And, and they're one particular friend I'm thinking about, we're on speed dial with each other, we just like, we're battling in life, how you doing? How's your thought life? How's your inner world going? And we're just honest with each other, and we pray for each other. If we're battling, like feeling like we don't measure up or whatever, we cover each other, we speak truth to each other, and that helps us. I think men, iron sharpening iron.
Yeah.
You can't really nobody's a self-made man. You can't become a self-made man of conviction.
No great man's a self-made man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not going to become a strong man of conviction in a world of compromise by yourself.
Yeah, it's true.
Guys.
There's this incredible opportunity that we all have to step into who God's called us to be.
Yeah.
And it's why we like David. It's why we like Samson.
Mm-hmm.
We don't like some of the areas that they fell.
Right.
But we look at that and we go like, okay, God's called me to these great things. And I remember being 15 years old, struggling with masturbation and pornography.
Yeah.
And of course, I've told this story so many times.
Sure.
And my dad going, hey, I think you should tell your sisters. And I remember telling my mom and my sisters what I had been struggling with, which was so hard.
Yeah.
And, but I had been living with so much shame around watching late night Showtime and pornography, all that stuff. I had been carrying that around for so long that when I finally told them, it was the first time I felt clean.
Wow.
And I remember that night, I had my eyes closed. My sisters were praying for me. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't ever want to not feel this way.
Wow. That's powerful.
So that's when I wore a white t-shirt every day.
I love your story.
I made that decision, right? To go, I'm going to wear this white t-shirt every single day. And that was how I put in front of me every day. Like I put on this thing for a whole entire year that reminded me of who I was.
You were choosing conviction.
Yeah.
And you got it from grace.
I did.
In the light.
Yeah.
Shame got killed.
Yeah.
And then you were like, this is who I am.
Yeah. The benefit of that, the benefit of a clean conscience is freedom. I go to bed, I feel great. I wake up, I feel great. I'm proud of myself. I can look at my wife with honestly, I think when I go home, I feel proud of me. I worked hard.
Yeah.
And that respect is what every man craves so much.
Right.
And so I can't expect my wife to give me something that I don't give to me.
Yes.
I can't expect her to respect me if I'm not living respectfully.
That's great.
And we often want people to give us something that we are not actually doing. And so I think that's part of the benefit of when I live a life, when I live the high calling, right? The path is narrow. It's hard.
It's very narrow.
I'm earning it in the sense of I am watching where my eyes go. I am focusing ahead of me. I'm making decisions. My dad used to tell me all the time, you can't wait till the windows are steaming up in the car to decide whether or not you want to be a virgin. Like, you're going to make the wrong decision.
Yeah. You decide before you get to the battlefield.
Decide before. And so to me, building out your convictions.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. If you really want to get serious about it,
Mm-hmm.
sit down and write out your ethos.
Yeah.
What is your vision?
Yep.
What's your mission? And what are your core values that you're living?
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a Crandall?
Right.
What's it mean to be a Valentin?
Mm-hmm.
When you sit down and you write out your mission, your vision, okay, let me break it down a little bit. Your vision. What have you been placed on this earth to do?
Mm-hmm.
Have ChatGPT help you do it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how you get it.
Yeah.
Right. So I've been placed, my ethos starts out with, I've been placed on this earth to restore broken men back into their God-given creation.
That's awesome.
I know that that's a North Star.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do that until the day I die.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I go like, I know since 13 years old, restoring men back into their God-given creation and destroying the works of the enemy is a vision that I will sign up for every day of the week.
It's powerful.
Okay. My mission in this season, I'm doing it through BraveCo, through this, right? So I can really focus on my mission. Then I get as a man. So my ethos starts out with my vision, my mission, and then as a man, I will confront fear. I will confront passivity. I will, whatever. This is what I'll show up and love my wife and my kids. I'm talking about the things that I'm responsible for in my life. What that does, man, is when you start to build out this document where you put your ideas, your ideals, your preferences, your high calling on a piece of paper, all of a sudden you can see it. And now you go, what do I have to do in order to live up to that? Well, a major component to conviction is accountability. Now, don't hold me accountable just for when I fall.
Right.
Hold me accountable to
succeed.
I'm a man who has a vision of restoring broken men like David did. That's what I want you to ask me. Jay, are you pursuing your vision? Yeah. Because if I say yes, then you know everything else is on par. Yeah. Right? Like it's on track. And so I think there's a lot of men who have never sat down and went, what is my ethos? Yeah. What does it mean to be a Crandall or a Valentin? Yeah. That was what I got from my dad growing up. He gave me he didn't have it written out, but many times and through different lessons, he taught me, this is what it means to be a Valentin. This is what we do. I literally remember him saying, this is what we do. This is how you show up. He was teaching me, these are the lessons that you will need to adhere to. This is what it means. This is how, and so I talk to my kids a lot about my daughter. My wife will say to my daughter, I'll hear my wife tell my 5-year-old, oh, Valentins work hard, Edie. So when Edie goes, I don't want to sweep the floor, Lauren will reinstill one of our values. Yeah. Valentins work hard. Yeah. It's ingrained in her to live with conviction. Yeah. A lot of people didn't get conviction instilled into them. Yeah. So it's this painful process of like, oh my gosh, I'm having to build this, and flex this muscle that I've never had to build before.
It's really good.
And it's a great way to do it.
You know, another way to build conviction, this is convicting, is understanding the power of your words. Yeah. Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, he said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Yeah. And anything beyond that comes from the evil one. What? And so it's like, but like, I can honestly say, for the most part, I've done pretty good at living by that, by grace, thank God. Yeah. You know, and the reason, you know, like, you know, when you do your vows at your wedding, you know, when you're a young man, a lot of young men don't understand why that's so powerful, because if we don't keep our word to the Lord, to ourselves, then we have a hard time being men of our word. But in Hebrew culture, there's no difference between what you say and what you do. Yeah. And so if we want to be men of conviction, our actions have to match our words, vice versa. Yeah. And so, you know, you want your wedding vows to mean something, keep your word to yourself now. Keep your word to your friends. Do you keep your word to important people, but not to people that other people? And so becoming a man of your word is a big deal. One time, my daughter, this blessed me. She was a little girl, and I'd promised her, and I told her that, so in other words, I never look at my kids and say, I promise we're going to go this. I swear. I promise.
Yeah.
I swear. If you get there and you have to start doing that, it's because somewhere you broke your word and nobody believes you anymore. You don't even believe yourself.
Yeah.
So you just flushed all your conviction down the toilet. So if you're there, the good news is you can start again by grace through faith. Go back to righteousness. It's a gift of righteousness. It's not something you earn. And let Jesus help you. I mean, all of us have broken our word. All of us have gone astray. So let that's where you start. But like my daughter looked at me and my wife, and she said, Dad gave me his word. He's going to take me to ice cream. And Daddy never breaks his word. And I was like, yes.
That's amazing.
And so I took her to ice cream.
I mean, ultimately, that's what we all want to be.
Yeah.
We all want our kids to say, Dad said he was going to take me out to ice cream, and he never breaks his word.
Yeah.
And I think when I look at my life, like, well, that's a lot of what drives me every day, is to wake up and to fulfill that mission, that vision, the reason why God put me on this planet. And in order to do that, I need to live with this conviction. And so, BraveCo men, hopefully this podcast has blessed you this week. One thing I want to challenge you to do is to work through an ethos. What does it mean to be you? And to start thinking through, like, if you've really struggled, especially if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I've really struggled with compromise. It's been a massive thing in my life. Before you even fix the compromise thing, which I think you should, sit down and think through, well, who do you want to be? What is the vision that you have in your life? If you can't nail it fully, it's okay. You can continually work on it. What's the vision? What's the mission? What are the core values, the principles that you want to guide your life? Put it out in front of you. Make it a working document. You might find that it grows, it flexes, it moves, it builds as you grow, but that'll at least get you to start making some decisions on, okay, I don't want to live like my life like this. I do. So if I do, I'm going to have to do X, Y, and Z, and it'll help you on your path. Guys, thanks so much for listening this week. Love you. Stay brave out there. We'll see you next week. Hey, BraveCo men. Hopefully you loved this week's episode. Listen, if you have not subscribed to our podcast, you are already behind. Go ahead and click right here to subscribe to our podcast. And if you have not watched last week's episode, you can click right here and watch last week's episode. And listen, if you want to upgrade your wardrobe, you can check out some of our new hats that we have in stock and all our other swag. Go to braveco.org and you can look at our store there. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.